You are a bearer of light.
Travis Wayne Goodsall. So, those of you who have been following know exactly what happened. Going over with you from the Book of Mormon, the prophecy in the learning of the Jews that in the latter days the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints would fall because it would turn in on itself. Mormons battling it out with Mormons. And I knew that tithing would be a part of it after a disaster or a war that would impoverish Mormons, requiring them to seek help from the church, and the church says no. And so then fighting against the church would proceed, as is common in rioting and looting from rioting. And but what would cause that war between Mormons? I need to go to bed. I'm worn out. I was lying down to get some more sleep, but my mind was caught up on this. And so here I am. It's a good thing it's water rather than mustard. Which I gotta do laundry too. And so, yeah, Fox 13 News Utah, specifically, is where I found out about it. Mormons are already at war over the Bible. And it's in the Book of Mormon that would be the trigger that Mormons would fight over. Because it says that the great and abominable church ruined the Bible. And that caused a stumbling block. And it's a dualistic prophecy in that it's also referring to the Book of Mormon and Joseph Smith, which are also in the learning of the Jews. It's the exact same pattern as the Bible. And so, yeah, as Christianity of Constantine destroyed the Bible, replacing it with Christianity from the learning of the Jews, likewise, Brigham Young sabotaged Joseph Smith in the Book of Mormon. And it's devious. And I'm the one giving you exclusive real church history information on this. And so it's disappointing that YouTube's employee has rigged the algorithm against me. Because last night I dropped the bomb again. I'd done the video before, but people have forgotten about it. And as a result, more things have happened because of this secret combination that the church is directly tied to. Then I'm able to again remind everybody that the church not only paid to have the 2016 election rigged and other events that have occurred, but more recently with overthrowing Roe v. Wade. This secret combination caused it. They put the Supreme Court justices in. They caused that. And the church is directly tied to it with the Skousens and their association with members on the secret membership conspiracy group, the Band of Gadianton. And so this is how Brigham Young did it. And it's necessary to understand so that you can understand how the church is going to fall. Because chapter 15 talks about this. After seeing this Tree of Life vision that I did yesterday, he is grieved because of the hardness of his brother's hearts who are disputing, don't believe anything, but also because of the things which he had seen in this prophecy vision, dream, and knew that they must unavoidably come to pass because of the great wickedness of the children of men, which came because of Christianity screwing up the Bible. And so now we're seeing the dualism with Brigham Young, with the Book of Mormon and Joseph Smith, turning him into Christian Jesus. So this is how it was done. 9/11/1826, Canandaigua, New York. William Morgan was working with Joseph Smith Sr. on a book to expose the plot by the Illuminati who infiltrated the Scottish Rites Freemasonry in America to overthrow America. They were going to do it incrementally over time, preparing and setting up for the latter days, using the Bible to coordinate their attack and get things into place for now, because we're in it. And William Morgan had obtained this secret information and wanted to warn America. But you can't just do it outright. You have to encode it in such a manner as that those who are aware of the code can figure it out. Plus, he'd also be murdered if he comes right out and names names. And so, he was caught. 9/11. They found him out and falsely accused him to lock him up for debtor's prison so that he would not be able to work on the book. David Miller, of the Batavian Press, who had fronted him the money to work on the book out in Canandaigua rather than Batavia, where his home was, released him from jail, paid his bond or bail or whatever it's called. And so Joseph Smith Sr., as the master mason of the lodge, it was his duty to rescue William Morgan. And so he had arranged to take him up to Canada. And then he chose not to stay in Canada and chose instead to take a ship on the East Coast, and the ship sank and ended up in the Caribbean. And then he was fishing one day with he had a new wife, and the ship sank, but then he took his wife to Honduras, where he became a banana plantation owner. The rest of the story, not essential to this story, but just so that you know I know about it. And so this disappearance of William Morgan, because I only found out from a descendant of William Morgan, this disappearance resulted in the anti-Mason movement, which you still hear in people to this day. They lump all Freemasonry together as evil and satanic, and both York Rites and Scottish Rites are now 33-degree Masons, and other dumb things that people do because of ignorance, not knowing the bigger picture, not learning of the subject matter, and just spouting off hate chants that they just repeat. And so this is where it all comes from. And there was a political movement that got started, and they went after Andrew Jackson to try to get him. And so to this day, people don't catch on to Andrew Jackson. Many people who side with this hate mongering of Freemasonry generally assumed that Andrew Jackson was evil because he was a Freemason. No, he actually, finally in the second term, was able to shut down the central bank in America again, because that's what caused the War of 1812. Was Congress decided, no, we're not going to do this central bank from the Brits, of the Rothschilds, as Nathan was the one who had taken over the family business. And so he declared war, paid for it, for the Brits. And chaos ensued, and the White House burned to the ground, etc., etc. Not the Canadians. And, and this was where William Morgan learned of the plot. Because it wasn't just the Brits coming over, it was the Illuminati who had been activated during this time as well. And so Joseph Smith Sr. now has to finish the book. It's his responsibility. And so he knew Sidney Rigdon. Gave it to Sidney Rigdon to work on it out in Ohio, far, far away. Nobody figured it out until Heber C. Kimball. He tells us in his journal entry when he writes it here in the Valley, he exposes that he knew it all. And that's why he joined the church. And so, because they can't let anybody know, because people are trying to murder whoever has the documents, and who's ever going to reveal the secret information of the latter days, they have to keep it encoded. Sidney Rigdon had the Solomon Spaulding manuscript. The guy died and didn't pay for it, so it can't be published. And so the press in Pittsburgh just gave it away. There's nothing they could do with it. The family didn't come to claim it. Nobody's going to pay for it. So they have to throw it away or give it away. And Sidney Rigdon was there because he collects books. He had a library. And because of his horse accident, in his earlier days, as told by his brother, it caused brain damage such that he required to plagiarize other people's works to give sermons to people. And so, perfect. We'll use the Solomon Spaulding manuscript that nobody knows about. Oops. People did find out. They did know about it. Mormonism Unveiled revealed that people knew about it. And so that was an oopsie. But, yeah, that's how the Book of Mormon was written. By a human, contemporary human. It is not literal history. It says so. It is prophecy of the latter days, because it's warning us about the threat to America in the latter days. And so they have the learning of the Jews, which is a Christ who is human, not a supernatural deity who's not real, as Christians pulled the stunt and replaced the Jews. And so this is Joseph Smith's Christ, and it's Emmanuel, Amen, the Egyptian sun god at noonday. He's going to be human. Joseph Smith says, hey, he's going to be Mormon. The Church of Christ is the organization for the Holy Grail. Knights Templar of the York Rites, not 33-degree Masons. And thus Egyptian gold plates and other things. And so Heber C. Kimball knows about this. He knows that the Smiths were involved, that the Book of Mormon is that book of William Morgan, and joins the church with Brigham Young. 1832. Because it's 1832, wasn't it? Not 1833, 32. And they go right to work as missionaries, pushing the Book of Mormon. Not another testament of Jesus Christ, but oops, that's what they do. That's their whole plot. And so they first go to the Scottish Rites Illuminati, who are furious, want revenge on who caused this. And Heber and Brigham Young go to them and say, we found him. It's the Smiths. They've started this church. They're pushing this Book of Mormon. This is the secret code of our plot to destroy America in the future. And so they devised a scheme, because Joseph Smith doesn't name his Christ because of the too frequent repetition to show reverence and respect. They take advantage and exploit that. And so they fill in the blanks. The Book of Mormon is now another testament of Jesus Christ. Christianity is replacing the Jewish Christ of Joseph Smith in the Book of Mormon. And they tell these who become Danites that this is how they're going to overthrow Joseph Smith's church. Is that they're going to go out as missionaries, telling people who are not affiliated with Freemasonry that this is Christian Jesus, not learning of the Jews. And thus, all these converts come in thinking it's Christian Jesus. And this is a trap for Joseph, they think, because these converts will come to Joseph Smith and praise Jesus, trying to get Joseph Smith to do one of two things: denounce the Book of Mormon and denounce the Christ, the Jewish learning of the Jews Christ, for Jesus, or to confess the name of his Christ, Emmanuel, the learning of the Jews, and thus disenfranchise, disappoint the Mormons who are joining, thinking it's Christian Jesus, and thus leave, or rise up in opposition to Joseph Smith. Because the Danites were the secret combination within the church. They were the ones going around the neighborhoods, murdering, plundering, raping, burning the property and lives of the others. And those people blamed Joseph for ordering it. It was Brigham and Heber. They're in charge of it. They brought in the Danites for this purpose, to get Joseph Smith in trouble. Just like William Morgan. And so Joseph Smith was constantly in the legal system, in jail. So who's running the church with Joseph Smith in jail? Well, 1838. We have the big coup of the church. Joseph Smith escaped from jail again because of what the Danites did to sabotage his bank. They had taken out loans and didn't pay them back, collapsing the bank. Joseph Smith got in trouble and was able to escape that, get out of jail for it. So Joseph Smith then has had enough of Christian converts thinking it's Christian Jesus Church, and writes his visionary account that we have in our canon, 1838. Yes, he has other accounts, but who's he talking to? He talks to a Jew, so does he say Jesus? No. He specifically tailors his communication to the person he's talking to, but he can't reveal the truth because there are people trying to murder him. They never can reveal the truth. Oliver Cowdery participated, knew what was going on, but could never reveal the truth. That's why he didn't denounce his testimony of the Book of Mormon. But he was upset with Joseph in 1838, before the coup, because Joseph was buddying up with Sidney Rigdon to run the church in a specific way that Oliver Cowdery didn't want. He wanted to run it his way. And Joseph was siding with Sidney. And so he took his ball and went home and threw in a little hate thing about his 15-year-old housemaid to help clean up around the house. He just falsely accused Joseph of having relationships with her, and thus gave the Danites a great idea. Heber C. Kimball was already practicing polygamy before he joined the church. 1829, he is in the Kimball Records genealogy as having had a child with a woman who was not his wife, and so she is included as a wife. And he joins the church, taking care of this other woman and the child. But he can't let it be known, because it's illegal. And it's against the Smiths' religion. No polygamy. It's denounced 5 times in the Book of Mormon. And in the 1835 Doctrine and Covenants, they reinforce no polygamy with a whole chapter on monogamy. Where'd it go? Where is it? It's one of the plain and precious truths, covenants, that were removed from Joseph Smith's Bible, scriptures. See the pattern? And so Joseph Smith condemns the missionaries. They're the ones responsible. He tells us this at the beginning, but you get distracted because he says the Church of Latter-day Saints. And you're going, no, Travis, it's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Did you look at the Joseph Smith papers? Did you ever watch any of those videos I did going over the Joseph Smith papers? See, the church wins when you are lazy learners. Satan wins. It's a major victory for Satan when you're a lazy learner. You do know that was Nelson. He announced himself as the Antichrist, and all of you were upset with him for being called lazy learners. Joseph Smith calls out the 12 and all the missionaries of the 70 of the 12. Joseph Smith had a different organization than we have now. He knew the missionaries were hurting his church. And so he came out and did the visionary account. The second vision is an exact match to Lehi's second vision in the Book of Mormon. keep going over that with you. And so Brigham Young has to escalate things here. And so he forges some documents that's in the Joseph Smith papers. I've gone over them. I've got the original documents now. Because you can do a save as to put it on in the file system. And so the 1844 that came out with another letter to Brigham Young telling him to go to war, come back from telling people I'm running for president, we're going to war. And then another letter to Emma, completely different signatures. It's not Joseph Smith in one of them. But the one to his wife says, I gave Heber C. Kimball $1,000, I think it was. Make sure that that money gets to the right place. Which do you think is from Joseph? And which do you think is a forgery? And it's right there in the Joseph Smith papers. And I got the original pictures of the original documents to show that it's not the same signature. There's a different person. And so, yeah, this is where Adam-on-Diamond comes in. Adam-on-Diamond was a mockery. They spell almond wrong. Joseph Smith in the Joseph Smith papers spells it A-W-M-E-N. But the Danites don't care about translation. They're not interested in any of that. It's Jewish, it's Egyptian. No, it's not Christian. So they spell it wrong. That's a tell. Section 116. What year was it put in? 1838, you say. Go figure. It's in the Joseph Smith papers. Guess what? It's a forged document. Because the original book, the ink had faded and it was crossed out. And then there was some room left in the book. So they used that book with a new ink quill after all those decades that had passed and made up a whole story that we now have 116 in our Doctrine and Covenants. Joseph Smith didn't write it. It wasn't by Joseph. He didn't actually go there and declare that. It was the Danites. Well, why? What were they doing there in Spring Hill, Missouri? That was the secret headquarters of Whitmer, wasn't it? Noel K. Whitmer? It's 117. Yeah, Noel K. Whitney. That was his home, was in that location. He's a Danite. They even forged this section to call him a Danite. It's hilarious, even though it's pure evil in what they're doing here. But they are exposing themselves if you have the original documents. And so, yeah, you can see that they put in Mountains of Adam-on-Diamond. Oh, it must be by Joseph. No, it's spelled wrong. But they put in what Joseph Smith was working on with the Book of Abraham. And so you have Olaha Shinha. Well, the church in 1981 said they decoded all of this. Shinehaw is Kirtland. But they didn't decode this as Kirtland. What's going on? And then we get to Newell K. Whitney and the Danites, which is not decoded. The church lied to us in 1981. Let my servant Newell K. Whitney be ashamed of the Nicolaitan band. The Danites. Nicolaitan, if you see it in your footnote, Revelation 2 through 6, yeah. And then 15, I have in parentheses, which we were supposed to, in the revision in the 2000s for the Spanish edition in 2009, we were supposed to find those and go to the source, and if it is just verse 6, get rid of the parentheses. If it does include 15, we'd put 6, 15 and get rid of the parentheses and get rid of the first 6. But that's the code from Revelation for the secret band of the Danites. Newell K. Whitney was a member of the Danites, and the Danites are forging this document to condemn him for being a Danite. And it's his home in Adam-on-Diamond that became the secret headquarters for the Danites. They're revealing their whole plot against Joseph Smith here. It's hilarious if it weren't so evil. And so, yeah, the church says that he repented. He didn't. Just like the guy who claims that a ruffian came to him and said, "Denounce the Church of Jesus Christ or I'm going to shoot you in the face." And he stood strong for Jesus. And the guy misfired and left him alone. You remember that story in Mormonism? I found who is responsible for this. It was Benjamin F. Johnson, I think is his name. He went to Adam-on-Diamond. It was a Danite who told him to denounce Joseph Smith. And he did, because he became a Danite. But he didn't denounce the Danites, Jesus Christ. And so this is the secret headquarters. Ta-da! Adam-on-Diamond. The plot to overthrow America. And so they gather the Danites to Adam-on-Diamond that year. There's an election going on there in Davies County. And so these Danites are there to rig the election. They're unoriginal. They keep doing the same thing over and over again. But yes, this is a symbol of what they were planning to do in the future, that the church paid for in 2016 and likely 2020. Because I found the little black book. I posted it last night for you. I tied the church together. I've done it. The documents, the evidence, the receipts, all goes to the church. And this, the real history of the church, is where they had that plot. And it's all right in the Book of Mormon. Book of Mormon's so true, isn't it, Mormons? And so they go down there and threaten the people to vote for their guy. And Chris Stewart's, House of Representative Chris Stewart from Utah, his third great-grandfather gets the first punch as he falls to the ground. The war begins. First blood has been spilt. Senator Lee, with John D. Lee of the Mountain Meadows Massacre, also on 9/11. Yeah, he too was there. So yeah, now do you understand why these Mormons are in Congress in America? Now do you understand why Lee tries to say no to the debt bill? He fails. That bill got passed anyway. Democrats caved to the extortion threat to destroy the nation and the world so that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints can have their kingdom back, and they rename it the Church of Jesus Christ. Just getting the bigger picture of what's going on these latter days? Now are you starting to believe me? It's a little late. We're in the final year. And so the Mormon War begins. And Governor Boggs issues the extermination order, calls for Joseph Smith to be arrested, because the Danites went to the sheriff and the judge and forced them to sign a confession that it was Joseph. And I did the video. The Joseph Smith Papers vindicates Joseph. He was not there. He did not know of it. He was in Kirtland, which was too far away for him to have actually been there with the Danites. You have to look at maps. You have to know how far a horse can travel in a day. All these need to be factored when you're doing research on church history. And so, Joseph Smith was framed again, this time for seditious conspiracy. Do you see how this is working out here? And so he's in Liberty Jail. Brigham Young, with the Danites, then purge the leadership of the church. David Whitmer is chased out by the Danites. They threaten his life. Leave the church or we're going to murder you and your family. And so he's the one who knew of Oliver Cowdery, who left and accused Joseph of raping a little girl. No child, by the way. Kind of a big clue that she didn't have an affair with Joseph. But when you deny science and believe in immaculate conceptions, I'm immaculately pregnant. You're not pregnant. Yes, I am. You can't tell me I'm not. I have a spiritual witness that I'm pregnant. And so, with the chased out leaders, Thomas B. Marsh from the 12, yeah, it wasn't over milk scrapings of his wife. It was the Danites. He wanted nothing to do with this secret combination and left. Brigham Young then sent him a letter threatening him to come to his disciplinary court. Brigham doesn't have authority to do that. And it was on March 17th, I refer to you again to Deuteronomy 19, which I again covered yesterday for you. And Brigham Young, having chased out the apostates from his quorum with the help of the Danites, with the remaining majority to form a quorum, voted for Brigham Young to become the president. He cooed the church. With Joseph Smith in Liberty Jail, Brigham Young took on the burden of leading the Mormons in Joseph's absence. And so they continue because Joseph gets freed. Joseph Smith figures out who it is. 19 July 1840. Joseph Smith Papers again. Because Brigham Young didn't publish it in the Doctrine and Covenants in 1844. He did publish Tithing, which magically appeared out of nowhere. And guess what year it was supposedly written? 1838. That's code, guys. Code. And so Brigham Young murders Joseph Smith. Danites brought him to the jail. John Taylor and Willard Richards of the 12 are there to make sure it happens. And I've gone over the forensic evidence of the crime scene numerous times over the years. And even one not too long ago, it was last month or something like that, when I did it again. And so Brigham Young now takes over the church. Doesn't follow section 107, verse 22. There is no true succession of Joseph's church. They are branch-offs. Brigham Young is the first president of what name? Yeah, it's now called the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So yes, Nelson gets up at the pulpit of conference and says section 115, which was written when? 1838. It was written by a Danite. For thus shall my church be called in the last days, even the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Joseph Smith Papers exposes all of this. And the church just plays dumb. Because when people like other than me, because I know the whole truth, when regular Mormons do the research, they will find out about the Danites. They will find out about the forged documents of the Danites, and Brigham Young and Heber C. Kimball changing the name of the church. They'll be upset with Joseph Smith because they won't make the connection to Brigham Young and his Danites. All they'll see is that Joseph Smith is wrong. Joseph Smith lied to us. And ignore that it was Brigham Young who lied. And so they'll leave the church. And they'll start a YouTube channel about how the church is wrong. And ex-Mormons will support them. Notice how they don't support me? And support their beliefs that the church is a fraud. But the church gets to claim it's a Christian church of Jesus. Literal history. So even though Joseph Smith is now an abominable person, he's the living prophet of Jesus. And we don't want to make Jesus angry, do we? Oh, yeah, Jesus. Right. Okay. I'll just be upset with Joseph and not the church. Not Brigham. That's the whole plot. Is that Mormons who want to commit crime and sin, like Willard Richards, who forged the sealing documents of Joseph, that Joseph Smith had been sealed to all of these little girls, then justified himself being actually sealed to two sisters who were 14 and 16 years of age. The Danites were practicing polygamy, blaming Joseph. Joseph Smith approves of this, but you got to keep it a secret because it's illegal. And so I do the video where I found Orange White, Lyman White's son, who goes to visit Brother Higbee. And he's got a polygamous wife. And he's telling Orange White, as Orange White is telling it in his journal, that Joseph Smith approves of this. Shh, don't tell. Got to keep it a secret because it's illegal. And so Orange White believes him that Joseph Smith approved and sealed him. Nope. It was Heber C. Kimball and Brigham Young as the leaders of the 12. They were the ones doing all these spiritual wifery sealings. Then you get John Z. Bennett, who joins and exposes that these Danites are Illuminati because he gets caught by Joseph Smith and excommunicated, for polygamy. And then goes back to the Danites, and the Danites say, "You're going to expose us. Get out of here. Get out. Leave us alone. We don't know you." And so he forms his own Illuminati church. Organization, orders, technically. So you have to do your research because you are not going to understand the Book of Mormon and its warning to you. You have to know the learning of the Jews. You have to know about the Yorkites, Knights Templar. You have to know of the threat from Canandaigua, New York on 9/11/1826. Otherwise, you're going to be lost and you're going to be stuck on Jesus, and it'll be a stumbling block, and then you'll fight other Mormons as to the legitimacy of the Book of Mormon and whether it's a threat and an addiction to children. Like porn. I'm not sure why the Bible was removed, but yeah, it has porn in there. So maybe that's why. And so I'm surprised they're not doing the Book of Mormon. Not too surprised. It's Mormons. We do have Spencer W. Kimball, the grandson of Heber, who tells us, Mormons, that he doesn't think the Songs of Solomon have any spiritual value to them and stapled them shut. So already you have Mormons who are taught that the Bible is worthless. It's not translated correctly. The church is never going to bother to translate it correctly to be the Word of God. And so it's worthless to Mormons. We've got the Book of Mormon. It plagiarizes the Bible. That's important. And so why do we need the Bible? We're still a Christian. Oh, dear God. And so, yeah, it looks like it's going to be over the Bible that Mormons will start the war. We'll have to see if the church steps in and quashes it. The Davis County will continue to ban the Bible. But the protesters are going above their heads to the Capitol to get the state to overrule on the Davis County decision. So we'll have to pay close attention to that, because this is the final year. Things have to escalate. And the Book of Mormon says that's going to be the cause. So Mormons have to fulfill the Book of Mormon prophecy. Has to. As he says, oh, whoops, we're not in the Book of Mormon. We're still in section 115. Must unavoidably come to pass, because the Danites had planned this. And so, yes, if Mormons find out that it's not Jesus, they'll blame Joseph. Joseph lied to us. He said it was Jesus. No, he didn't. You missed the learning of the Jews. That's the trap that Brigham Young set. That's what Christians trapped in replacing the Jewish scripture, the Bible. Is that they are using the prophecies of the Jews to be fulfilled, because it's science, astronomy. It's going to happen. It has happened. It will happen. There's more to come in this final year, and even in the final day next year. It's in the Bible. They know it will happen. And so they need to get Christianity riled up about the Bible. And then guess what? No Jesus. What do Christians do now? What do Mormons do now? The Book of Mormon said he was real. Where's Jesus? The Bible and the Book of Mormon, the Mormon equivalent of the Bible, now as a stumbling block becomes the ruin of Christianity and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And the church has already got it prepared as to what to do next, because Albert Pike tells us, as all of Christianity are lost and fallen, they don't know what to do now. They can't start another Christian church because Christianity has now been proven false. And so the Church of Lucifer emerges. Yeah, we've been the Church of Lucifer the whole time. Joseph Smith. Lucifer. It's not actually Jesus. It's an epic for Lucifer. It's Joseph Smith. Nothing we can do about it. This is how they're going to trick you and convince you to be a part of Lucifer's kingdom, despite the Book of Abraham, despite the Book of Moses, despite the Doctrine and Covenants, despite the Book of Mormon that warns us that Lucifer's the bad guy, and he's a trickster and a deceiver and a liar. But this is what the church is already setting up. And so they have to do away with scriptures to force Mormons into slavery so that they don't have time to read scriptures. That they have to listen to the prophets and only believe what they tell them to believe. 1984. Because if you read, you might learn the truth. And so Joseph Smith as an epic becomes something that they use as the fall guy. Our founder, Joseph Smith, said that Lucifer is a bearer of light. And it was Jesus who is described as being a bearer of light. He is our Christ that we used as the original name to avoid the too frequent repetition of the name Lucifer. See how evil they're going to become? Far beyond what they already are, because I've exposed what they've been doing to overthrow America. Overthrow Roe v. Wade. Rigging the elections. Trying to start a civil war. All so that they can get their kingdom back. And so, yeah, this is my calling to warn you to come out of Babylon. To save yourself. The destruction of my people, I had beheld their fall. The Mormons. And so Laman and Lemuel are disputing over the olive tree, which we find out about in Jacob. They don't understand how the natural branches the Gentiles can be grafted in, and God, that's what you're complaining about? Have you not inquired of the Lord? Well, he hasn't made anything known to us. So you didn't inquire of the Lord. But he didn't make anything known to us. Spiritual witness didn't tell us. How is it that you don't keep the commandments? How will you perish because of the hardness of your hearts? See what he's doing here? And then he's talking about faith, which you have to take into the context of Alma chapter 32, starting verse 28. Like in the word unto a seed. And so I'm talking about the house of Israel. Mormons are scattered around the world, despite the church saying that they've fulfilled prophecy of gathering. No, Mormons are scattered. They are not in Zion. Oh, but Zion is where you are. No, the prophecy is for the gathering to Zion. A physical location. A man like Moses with those keys that Joseph Smith got at the Kirtland Temple during Passover of the Exodus from Moses. The keys of Moses was given to him of the gathering, the Exodus, from the Great and Abominable Church, section 103, verse 16. Okay. And after many generations, Messiah shall be manifested in body to the Mormons. Then shall the fullness of the gospel of the Messiah, the Mormon man like Moses, come unto the Gentiles because of YouTube. But YouTube will be ordered by the church to silence his voice. Well, and supposedly there are going to be those of you who will come to the knowledge of me. Are you? Or are you disputing and running away? No, he's not true. I'm not going to listen. I'm only going to listen for a tick-tock amount of time. Because psychologists told my school teachers to not grade me anymore. And so I only passed because I participated in high school. God. You do know that's what they're doing to destroy America. Divide and conquer. And for Mormons shall reject the Jews. Rejected of the Mormons. The Messiah shall be rejected of the Mormons. The house of Israel. There they explain the difference between Jew of modern day versus the intended Jew in the Book of Mormon. It's the house of Israel, living in Judah, Utah, phonetically the same, thus Mormons, in Utah, of the house of Israel, concerning the restoration of the Mormons in the latter days. Not Joseph Smith, the latter days. Verse 19 there. Whoops. And it was Isaiah who's speaking of the restoration of the Mormons in the latter days. That's why the certain Isaiah passages are put in the Book of Mormon by Joseph Smith Sr., who had to rewrite the 116 pages because Martin Harris stole them because it had too much Freemasonry in it. And yet, I still see others who are trying to come up with other apologies that are not based in reality, that are based on speculation, that are not based on the real history of the church. Because they consider it the Book of Lehi, literal history. So now he's getting the interpretation of the tree of life, the iron rod, the word of God, love of God, the temptations and the fiery comets and the asteroids of the falling stars of Lucifer, adversary, and Satan, translated from the Hebrew. Which, in Paleo-Hebrew, the N at the end is for king, so it's Set. Oh, that's the Egyptian deity who murdered his brother Osiris and usurped the kingdom. And then Horus, the son of Osiris, had to return to Egypt to restore the kingdom. Restoration. That's where it all originates from, the language of the Egyptians. Hearken unto the word, give heed. Awful hell prepared for the wicked Mormons. Flaming fire. Angry dog. Those are the two computer game apps. Nobody's working on those. Are you working on them? $1 million ideas. Angry dogs. And it had to do with the church. Was the other one. I can't remember now. You'll have to watch that video and remind me of what it was. Because the church, if the Mormon would do it, it would be ruined. I remember that much because of my associative memory. Alright. And then Tree of Life explanation here that I've already gone over with you. And that's it. And then, or be cast out because of Garna, of which I have spoken. Hashtag free Garna. Justice. Her name is Just. And devil is the preparator of it. The final state of the whole souls of men in the kingdom of God, or to be cast out. So yeah, you get denied going into my kingdom because you're still a Danite. You still believe in Jesus. You will not be allowed in. No unclean thing can enter. This next year, we still have to wait to see if the Book of Mormon will be fulfilled, that the Bible becomes the ruin of the church and the fall of it. And then in the fall, Mormons will go to the church saying, hey, I need food, I need clothing, I need... Well, are you working? No, I lost my job because of the war. Sorry, nothing for you. We can't take care of everybody. We'd become a welfare state. You got to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. Yep. So, wicked are rejected from the righteous. The wicked can't stand to be among righteous anyway. unless they're purposely doing it to deceive the righteous, to overthrow the righteous, like the Danites did. So, but yeah, that's why they need to be kicked out, because their only purpose for being there is to overthrow the kingdom, to corrupt the righteous. Choose the right. Corrupt the righteous. You did know that, right? That's not a surprise to you. I didn't make it up. I learned about it from other Mormons who made it up. CTR. Well, we'll have to put that somewhere in the thumbnail picture. Still have to figure out what to put for a thumbnail picture.